Indian adland is no stranger to ad women and men charting their own paths and building companies that have produced legendary ads, taking businesses and brands to great heights. We have a rich history of iconic agencies that started independently and were later acquired by large global organizations. Somewhere along the way, however, they lost their indie spirit and identity. But it seems like the era of the indies is coming back. And despite the obvious market challenges and economic headwinds, some would argue there's never been a better time for the independents to rocket. I want to know what they have that the major networks don't. What are their struggles and where are the big opportunities coming from? And most importantly, how they tell their brand stories in a complex and always-on media age where everyone is scrambling for attention. I have 4 founders with me today. Arun Iyer of Spring Marketing Capital, Fundamentals Pallavi Chakravarti, Ashish Khazanchi of Enormous, and PG Aditiya of Talented Agency. They've led globally networked agencies in the past, and they are here to answer the question, is it really the best time to be independent? And with that, Arun, let me come to you first. I have to ask you this straight up. Answer that question for me. Is it the best time to be independent? And I'll give you a bit of context on where I'm coming from. At the end of 2024, we had a major merger announcement. It's still in the works, Omnicom and IPG. And of course, one of the big sort of key points that came out in all the talk and buzz around it was that given all the complexity and the chaos on the holding company side, this is a fantastic opportunity for independents to really sort of, just accelerate growth and get in there.
I think about it, Delshad, I think it's probably the best time to disrupt. I don't know about necessarily whether it's the best time to be independent or no, but the fact that some of the best talent of the business is wanting to do this independently, which means that there is a problem of them not being able to be disruptive in their roles, which is why they're actually stepping out, branching out and saying, okay, I can unabashedly disrupt. And I think that's what is going on. And I think it's high time, and it's probably the best time to disrupt. Because there is so much of the past that keeps getting discussed. And I think, to be honest, and and I have been with the large network agencies, I think to some extent the Indian offices are seen as outposts that are just cash generating machines. And and still the time it's seen that way, I think there will be a talent exodus, and there will be people like here who are fantastically talented, not his company, but but are disrupting in ways that we've not seen before. So, yeah.
It's interesting, and there's a mix, like we discussed earlier, there's a mix of, ages here when it comes to your companies. From the youngest to, Ashish, you and Arun, of course, have been independent now for a while. Let me, Ashish, just, this whole sort of disruptiveness, not hanging on to the past and baggage and all of that. Are you seeing it the same way?
Number one, even when I was with the networks, I always behaved like I owned the agency. I was
your own rules.
an independent person out there also. I have always believed in doing work which everybody should want to do, which is disrupt stuff, bring about disproportionate kind of an impact to how people are perceiving the brand or that business and stuff. For me, honestly, not all that very much has changed. We wanted to set up a certain kind of a culture. We wanted to make sure, the all old school values of how an advertising agency is run, not just in the output of it, in the way the culture exists, continues to exist.
It's always been a very, I don't know if it's best time, worst time, but it's always been very easy to start an ad agency for anyone who wants, because it doesn't take too much capital. Right? If you have decent work and if you know a bunch of clients, etc., you can start your own agency tomorrow with very, very little money. So the culture of lots of entrepreneurs is not uncommon to our industry at all. But I think since the last decade, especially since the last 5-6 years, we can see that the larger networks are increasingly, it's tough for them, and I mean, we can say them right now, but we used to say us. We used to say it's tough for us, and now to Ashish's point from earlier as well, I completely agree. I think those of us who really, like our jobs, whether you're in a network or whether you're independent, you feel it is like your own company. And the tragedy is when you realize the glass ceiling to that belief, right? Like you're like, okay, I am an owner, I am an owner, I am an owner until this point. And then after that iron curtain, is that the right phrase? is we weren't able to cross that. So in our sense, it was pretty much my co-founder Gautam and I think we had a little bit of a Sundar Pichai-esque story, he was account executive, I was copywriter. We spent about a decade, moved up the ranks, and then by the time we got to the top, we kind of realized, wow, we had a lovely team along with us, and we were like, there's so many ideas we want to do. There's so much we really want to build a place, but it needed the whole system to be a lot more risk-friendly. And you can't expect that from a network that has so much to lose and which is so big, etc. Right? So you need a place without baggage in order to try out a lot of the things, which is why I think independents are also very attractive to clients because we all have a story. We all have a story. Our story is not from 70 years ago where we don't really know how it started and we're the 7th generation in it. Our stories are active conversations, and I think that's really helpful.
You mentioned earlier also you joined Taproot just when it was getting acquired by Dentsu.
Right.
So it was at that absolute massive transitional point for the company. You were with them for a while, and now you've set up Fundamental. This bit about clients coming along and what clients want today. Do you want to maybe address that a little bit? How is it? What are they coming to independence for?
I think it's tied in with your previous question. And I just want to say here that I don't think there's ever a right time. I think anybody who starts out has a threshold when you're working elsewhere, and whatever your triggers are, whenever that threshold is breached, that's when you decide that, okay, I might as well put my money where my mouth is and see whether my way is the right way, because then you're living and dying by your sword. So I do think that it's all interlinked. Everything that all of them have said.
True.
There comes a time that you just decide, it could be after, actually, if you look at it, pandemic, post-pandemic is the worst time to be setting out, because there was such uncertainty. People didn't know what was hitting them, right? At a time like that, to contemplate letting the security and the cushy blanket loose, cutting that loose, and saying, no, let's do this, right? It's not technically what would be written in textbooks as the right time to start.
Right.
So I just think what matters is if you feel you've been in the business long enough, if you love it long enough, and you have a certain approach to it. And if you find that for whatever it's, like he said, the ceiling, right? There is a ceiling that you might hit when you're elsewhere. Then you decide to take that punt, right? So I think clients do, I think they are cognizant of the fact that there are bigger systems which are throwing numbers and people and, warm bodies at problems. And it is, in a lot of ways, fatty. Okay, I've seen it happen. I've seen a lot of people. I've seen 26 people on a call, videos off during the pandemic. Most of them just letting in, oxygen and letting out carbon dioxide. There's just no other, I'm being harsh over here, but that's the reality. And you can't blame them because you can't have 27 people, being cogent in one conversation. That'll be chaos. So there are 2 or 3 people who are doing the work. There's a lot of people who are just sitting around, and balls do drop, despite the fact that there's
so many people,
right? So I think lack of accountability, all of that, these things automatically happen when systems become cumbersome,
too big,
unwieldy, right? And I think that is something that clients feel, at least I speak purely for what we've done at Fundamental. When they come to you, they're getting the right kind of engagement from the people who they think can actually solve for it, right? So everybody who's on a call or in a room is actually punching above their weight. And that, I think, makes a difference.
Arun, it's interesting because fundamentally, your company was started very differently from what would be a traditional ad agency, right? You had a different idea for where you wanted Spring to be. You were investing in businesses. Let's stay on the... You are investing in businesses. Let's stay... I don't want to talk as much about what the networks are, not getting right, but maybe just, tell me, the kind of people that are attracted to the kind of work that, you guys are putting out there.
See, in my view, I don't think there is that this type of client is attracted to this type of a company. I think in general in marketing what's happened in my view is that the marketing ecosystem has also dramatically changed.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that most CMOs stay in their job for 2 years, and that's the truth. And when they are there, they want to try and do the best possible work that they can on their brand. And then they say, okay, now who...
Award-winning work as well.
Some of them are seeking awards as well. And they are saying, okay, who is out there putting out some work, making a lot of new noise? And then they see some folks from here, some other folks who are not in this room right now. And then they say, oh yeah, these guys seem to be getting it right. And then they go and work with them. So I think that I don't think there is a certain type of client who works with a certain type of agency. I think there is like people who are doing good work get more work from clients. But going back to your question of fundamentally why I began Spring with my co-founders Raja and Vineet was because I think that the ecosystem of building brands is broken. I don't think people are building brands anymore. People are just writing fantastic ads, and then some other people are writing fantastic ads for the same brand, and then some other people are writing fantastic ads for the same brand, and all kinds of stuff going on. But in the good old way, if you have to build brands, then you have to work deeply with brands for many years. Brand building is a very long-term, it's a long-term, slightly boring task, which I have done over many years. And I feel that's the reason why we set up what we set up, saying, okay, if we have to build brands, why don't we put our money where our mouth is? We actually invest in the companies, put our skin in the game, and stay the course with them, and see what we can put out. So that's fundamentally where I feel this brand building versus doing current relevant great work is the toggle that's going on.
And how painful is it today to find and stick with a brand and work on it? And what Arun mentioned about brand building versus giving that viral hit, or, you know, I mean, you have all these other new agencies coming up, very specifically doing one thing like meme marketing, for instance. So how do you do that? How do you stay the course long-term brand building versus, you know?
So two parts to it. There is a part of what Arun said, which I 100% agree with. There is a part of it which I may have some disagreement on. I think number one, there is a fair amount of gumption, a fair amount of judgment on the other side as well, which is on the client side, that they can, I mean, they have all the data, they have, you know, the way the brand has performed with certain kind of campaigns, not done very well with a certain other kind of campaigns. What is the kind of narrative that should be taken forward? There is a fair amount of judgment that exists on the other side as well. And they can possibly bring about teams or agencies who can come in, plug in to a certain part of that narrative, which this agency can take forward or this team can take forward. So that part is the place where I would disagree. Brands cannot be done, built by just one little viral hit. Lot of buzz will only lead to white noise, right? So it will not build a cogent trajectory or a cogent narrative. But I think there is a fair amount of knowledge and judgment which exists out there. We as an agency, we are split roughly half and half between, more than half and half in favor of retainer kind of clients. There are still many number of people who do want, right, that there is a agency who should be the keeper of the brand's voice, brand's knowledge and all of that, and keep on building on it in a way that it is cohesive. We have no problems doing the one-hit wonders also every once in a while. They bring a lot of joy about, right? So while 100% agree that a part of it could be boring, but it needs to be done. Brands are not built by doing 20 things in 20 different months and all that. You take a narrative and stay the course, right? But doing the little projects and all of that does also bring a lot about joy in the agency. It becomes magnetic out there in the market. It becomes magnetic for the talent. So I have like zero issues doing the little item numbers also.
I like that, the item numbers. PG, thoughts on item numbers?
I think my take on this is, I'm flattering myself, but very much like Bumrah's. You just don't think about the batsman. Think about what you want to do. Focus on your skills, focus on your employees, your talent. What are the policies you're having internally as an agency to make sure that a client is always getting the best, most motivated version of the team. I think that is the trouble is I think we've unfortunately done a very, very good job at being fake with clients, just telling them what they want to hear. Right? Okay. I think we all and people can slightly see through the kind of stuff that the leadership says and what's on a creds deck, etc. And like what Pallavi mentioned, like the 27 people who are video off don't care about what was sold, within the room amongst the leadership. They're the ones who are actually working, right? So we kind of felt like there is a huge redesign of this employer-employee equation that needs to happen in advertising anyway. The reason we're called talented is also, no points for guessing. That's kind of what we feel is most important to us. The trickle-down effect of a workforce that has, most of the promise that we make to anyone who's part of Talented is simple. You will get an opportunity to do very diverse work while being credited very fairly, being paid as per market rate without burning out. This is the offer. This is the promise. And I think everyone and as long as we're able to meet these very sensible expectations of creative people today, we don't need to think too much about, how exactly is the client going to benefit and what does the client want. No, you're putting the best people out there, then they'll take over and do a lot more of the heavy lifting than one would expect. What that kind of an approach has led to is one where, I'll take the Britannia example, like you said. We're very, very, very happy with being perceived in different ways by different clients basis whatever our scope is for them. We work on projects, we work on retainers. My co-founder personally, and I tend to agree with him, I think we've gotten generally used to the retainer model overall. There is this little comfort from a P&L standpoint, 12 months ahead I can see what to do, etc. But having a little bit of if you were to have a bias towards razor sharp margins on each product, on each project, and looking at things from a case-by-case basis to be like, okay, cool, we're here to do this job, let's do this job really, really well and move on. We've found terrific value in that. In fact, the joke is internally we call projects as pretainers because 75-80% of our...
Yeah, that is a good
That's
one.
nice.
Pretainers.
75-80% of clients who engage with us on a project basis tend to come back.
Yeah.
Right, 3-6 months down the line, whatever it is. So it's only been 3 years so far, but we found very encouraging success in this kind of a model.
Pretainers. Pallavi, it's interesting because when I speak to some of the current network agency heads, this project thing and these constant pitches.
They need to work harder. Yeah, that's why they're scared. Hand to heart, that's all it's about.
Yeah.
I can speak on behalf of my business heads. They have to be intellectually sharp week on week, month on month, because they go about, they're not looking, okay, 12 months down the line, okay, I've had one negotiation, I will do another negotiation this time next year. No, these guys they have an eye on the ball. So if it is genuinely working harder, and yeah, that can be scary for a lot of people. Yeah.
Scary, Pallavi, scary for a lot of people, but as an independent, that kind of freedom that comes with working on projects. Give me your take on it. And are you, there are certain bad practices, of course. There are people calling for pitches just, to get the best rate, the best this, the best that, and just cost cutting and all of that. How do you hold your own in that case, and just make sure that you are not being shortchanged? Undercutting, of course, major issue for everybody, I guess. It's like a race to the bottom. So how do you hold your own?
Nice. Race to the bottom is nice. I'll tell you what we do, and I think a lot of people here will agree. One of the biggest benefits of being independent is that you get to say no. If you're not exercising that benefit, then there's absolutely no reason why you should have struck out on your own anyway. I think it's very important that everybody knows why they struck out. Like I said, first there was a threshold. Then it's not just, acha, try karte hain, let's see. You have to have a reason for having started out, because you know that you're bringing something to the table that you think others will not do as well as you, right? If you're sure of that. So if you're sure of the value you are bringing to the table and are able to communicate that to a client and then demonstrate it through the work that you're doing, right? I don't see a reason why you should be afraid. And if clients cannot see that, like we don't work without a pitch fee. When somebody comes in saying, hi, if they're flying a kite, then they'll have to take it elsewhere, right? Because, and I'm sure there's plenty of takers, that's the reality. It is a buyer's market, unfortunately, in today's day and age, and there's fragmentation galore. So everyone's willing to dance on a table, right, at zero cost. And that's unfortunate, but then that's the kind of return you're going to get, right? And as a client, maybe you won't see that, but maybe you will, right? As an indie, you can only build a body of work, build cases, right? And show to the person sitting across the table, this is what I'm good for, this is what I do, this is what it'll cost you. If that doesn't work, there will be something else, right? So I think the biggest thing is that you don't, of course there's uncertainty, you don't have your sweet paycheck coming in, but there's also the thing of, hey, I'm not feeding an empire and I'm in no rush to turn into one, right? So you get to cherry pick. If you're good at your job, you get to cherry pick. I believe that. I have no reason to not believe that in the 1 year, 8 months that we've been active. So let's see. Let's see how it unfolds. But
so saying no is important.
Absolutely.
How many clients have you guys turned down, or or just
80 to 90% of all incoming leads. 80% of the incoming leads. Yeah.
Same.
Because it's going to be, what they're in it for. There is enough of stuff floating around right now, which is like, acha, try this. Acha, we were thinking just a small approach, an approach. What is an approach, friend? Haji? There is no such thing, right? Yeah, define it. Very nebulous, right? So it's just a matter of you also develop a nose for it. Nobody comes into it knowing shit from sugar, right? I mean, you figure it out as you go along. You develop an instinct for this person is on a fishing expedition. And you play your cards accordingly.
Yeah.
I think it's also become, even within the marketing fraternity, right? It's never I know we talk about it in this full industry type thing that it's all agencies and all clients. It's mostly like we're all trying to find soulmate energy. Like we all know that there are exceptions in the marketing side as well. Great marketing talent is rare, just like great agency talent is rare, so to speak. And
I don't know which one is rarer.
But she's right. Like the signs are very clear now. It's not like there is new vocabulary in place to kind of hide the fishing of the ideas and this and all of those bad practices. Special place in hell for those who still think that should be the status quo.
Arun, you've worked with a whole bunch of startups. Tell me this, do startups attract startups? And are this sort of new crop of startup brands, are they behaving perhaps differently from more legacy clients that you've worked with? I've heard some horror stories on both sides.
Yeah, there are horror stories everywhere.
Yeah, so what's your take on that? I mean, do you see what PG, you said that soulmate energy, are you finding some patterns there? I'll ask all of you and maybe think about it.
So I think it's just people who have studied marketing versus people who have not studied marketing. I think that's the way I see the difference between the legacy companies and the startup ecosystem. And one of the reasons that, and again, we felt that our business model was probably something that connects, was because I think India is an ecosystem of startup founders. Marketing is not something that's second nature to Indian founders, unlike the West. In the US, the founders are very marketing savvy themselves. Versus in India, the founders are a little more focused on product, focused on building what they're.
I mean, I would agree. Have you seen Dipendra Goyal? He's like a marketing genius. But that's an exception.
Yeah, so those are rarities. Like Ashish has done some great work with a recent founder and stuff. But in general, marketing is not something that is second nature. So there is a lot of, they just punt their way through. And if there is somebody who can kind of hold their hand and walk them through that process, then it's helpful. But that said, it is so now there are both ways, right? Like there is in the legacy world, there is a lot more structure, a lot more process, lot more, there are ways of doing things that are defined.
Which can be stifling.
Which can be stifling, at times can also be, great things can come out of it. It cuts both ways, right? Similarly, I think here, a lot of that defining, that fundamental work is something that you have to bring to the table as well, along with doing the work. Now, when IPL comes about, a lot of startups with money go shopping around and say, okay, we want famous ads. And then there are famous ads that get created. So that's different from, again, brand building in my view. So yeah, that's what is going on.
Over the last, couple of years, we've seen a lot of founders extremely, super obsessive about product. They have 12 tabs open in their head and they're trying to figure out, how to go. But advertising is like barely 5% of how much makes up in their marketing or advertising. But they know that what they expect from it is so much more, right? So, and we kind of realized that they were coming to an agency, creative agency, too fast. Right? They were like, oh my God, there's so much work that we feel needs to get done at a basic marketing, positioning level, etc. And those were the clients who we feel worst about turning down have been founders. Because we're like, man, oh, I see you. Yes, I feel you.
Also, the biggest service that one can do now, and that's where the business model itself comes into question, right? Like now, if somebody comes to you and says, you're running an advertising agency, hey, I want an IPL campaign. If you're not able to tell that company saying, listen, don't do it, you're walking into hell. Because if you don't have X amount of money and you're going to, randomly create an IPL campaign and put it out there, which very few people are going to see, it's not going to move the needle for the company. And that's money that company might never be able to recover from. Who's going to tell them that? It's very important to actually say, listen, don't do this. You're not ready for it yet.
Right.
Because you need to,
So sometimes we actually go ahead and...
I was going to ask you also, I was going to ask you because you've been very quiet right now in this part of the discussion.
Right. No, I see good things about both sides of the story, right? The startup, founder-led kind of companies, and there are legacy companies who've been doing this for decades together and all of that. The great thing about the legacy brands, the legacy companies and all of that is that there is a lot of rigor that goes into it, and there is a hell of a lot of brand building that you're doing together with them, with all the things which are almost textbook definition of how anybody would learn marketing, how anybody would excel at all of this would get done, which is a great growing experience for all the people who are working on it from both sides of the table. But the value that more often than not that they seek from their partners and the teams working on it is incremental. Now, the moment you switch to the other side, incremental just doesn't cut it, right? So they want, I've got 20 crores, I'm going on, whatever IPL, EPL, whatever the hell else. मेरे को 100 crore का item number चाहिए. Right, मेरे को 20 crores just is definitely, right? You go to IPL with 5 crores, 10 crores, 20 crores, it's just not going to really cut it. So I want seriously a big bang with the monies that I've got. They have a higher appetite for risk. They have a higher appetite for doing stuff which would get larger number of people into the box. So there is अलग-अलग तरह के रस है, थोड़ा सा मिक्स फ्रूट जूस, थोड़ा सा गंगा जमुना, सबके मजे लेने चाहिए.
I don't think startups are contacting startups. To answer your very first question, no, I don't think they are. I think in the...
You don't think startups are?
Contacting startups.
Okay.
It's not like
Not
because
true.
we are 1.5 years old,
Sure.
there's only one
Yeah,
company
they're like,
coming
we
to
need
us.
to compensate for our lack of experience.
So it's not, there's no bullseye, oh, this person does only this kind of work or this setup does only this kind of work. I don't think it's that. You build a certain, you have a repertoire, and basis that, for us, we don't even, it's not just about the work. We start well before the work sometimes. We've actually parallelly written briefs with the marketing team and then even had a discussion about which is the right way to be going. So the what before the how, is something that we do. So it's
in your name as well.
It is in our name, actually, and that is exactly why. So like I said, you need to know what you're coming into the maidan with.
I think
And that is, I think, so people can commit, I mean, even legacy clients can sometimes commit you saying, okay, we have all of this history geography, but this time round, we're not sure. So how does that, what next, right? So much before you actually crack a campaign, right? Because today, creative is often seen as, in a lot of things, in the way it's becoming, it's commoditized, right? Everybody's
That's
a
also
creator.
because, sorry to intrude, but I also believe that's also because I think most CMOs believe they can do the CCO's work today.
No, and besides that, there's at every gully nukkad, there's somebody who's creating content,
That's
right?
also
That is the reality.
ChatGPT has made it worse. Everybody thinks they're a writer.
Sure, of course.
just to
Somebody's got to be
counter
putting
to-
that prompt though.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to be thinking.
Yeah.
So I think if you're not thinking, right, I mean, the person at the other end needs to know that you have the thinking cap that they need. That is essentially it. At the end of the day, if push comes to shove, everybody can write a script, right? And the people are today.
Yeah.
To Arun's point, the CMOs thinking of themselves as CCOs sometimes. I think that's the CCOs are also a little bit to blame because I don't think a lot of us have just spent too much time in meetings and selling the work and whatever and so many corollary parts of the JD rather than the actual creation. I love this quote. It says, art critics talk about cubism, impressionism, existentialism and so on. Artists talk about where to get cheap turpentine. Right, so I think the more the CCO puts themselves into the actual creation job and can say that yes, I am actually working on this and not just I'll come into a shoot,
The
use
higher
my
power.
like use my clout and say that lamp color is not good and get applause for it. I think that there's a little perversion of our own role that's kind of happened. That's also to this thing. But to your earlier point, just about the how we've tried to solve for this this thing to work with founders more is we kind of realize that if that becomes a discipline internally for us, we're only going to dilute it. So in fact, just a few months ago, we've launched a fractional CMO service.
Okay.
Just exactly for this problem. They're called early partners. They're pretty much designed to work with startups from their 1 to 10 or 1 to 100 journey. Everything that needs to ideally come before advertising. And that, for instance, needs you to genuinely spend hours and hours with the founder, get into their head, everything that Arun is talking about. It's not a PowerPoint presentation, it's a conversation. And it's a conversation that will probably, happen at 9 o'clock in the morning before everything starts because the founder got this idea while she was on a walk somewhere or whatever. These are proper obsessed people building their product and they deserve to be admired and they deserve to have a particular kind of service within the industry that caters to their exact issues, which is kind of what we're attempting.
I wanted to ask more on the technology aspect. I mean, back to the point about all the networks. We're just talking about technology. We're talking about AI stacks and all of that. Just a quick, I'll go, in one circle, Ashish, quickly. Has technology leveled the playing field? Is it? I mean, we're talking about ChatGPT, and everybody's a creator now, and. So, I mean, your thoughts on how technology is perhaps leveling the playing field a lot more?
So, what's happening with any of the AI apps and suites and stuff is basically it's giving you, let's say a ChatGPT is giving you 4 very competent, a little bit more than competent writers, right? You still need a great creative director who will direct the efforts in a way that it's going to be still unique. It's not going to be, something which is generic. Most of it, right? So the way the large language models will work, are working, is they are basically looking at the rear view mirror and creating something out of that, right? But it does need somebody with a foresight, with a vision to create something which is going to be unique, right? So all of this is available for all the people in the agency, all the 100, 110 people in the agency, for example, for us. Have free ChatGPT, they have free Midjourney, they have free Runway, they have free Claude. All of them use it to their heart's content and everything.
Grok.
Sorry?
Grok is the new big thing.
Keep up with everything.
All of this, right? So they have access to all of this. I don't think, it's really like, you've got a laptop, but the fact that you have a laptop doesn't mean that you are really thinking different and you're creating something. You've got all the tools. Now it's up to people. and the creative directors who are monitoring these 4 above mediocre kind of people in your pocket on your chat GPT to get the kind of work that you really want, right? So it's available to you, but you still need a Piyush Pandey running this team of, you still need that, right?
Or an Ashish Khazanchi.
Yeah, let's pat each other.
I love that you mentioned Piyush. We were earlier talking about this thing that we had done, a story that we did on where we asked the question, is Tanmay Bhatt the new Piyush Pandey or the next Piyush Pandey?
Right.
Thoughts?
I mean, I love what Moonshot is doing. Tanmay and Devaya, Puneet and all of that. I'm not sure that I admire them only for the creative bit of it. I think they're coming from a great place, okay? And I think there is a fair bit of that they've transferred to a lot of us here on the table and in the industry also. I think the industry has been running on a huge amount of scarcity kind of a mindset. Right? They've been running on a huge, we are running an industrialized complex, and the product that we're doing is a product of that industrial kind of a complex, and it must be run to those kind of rules. It's not true at all. We are creating bespoke solutions for bespoke problems, right? They recognized it, right? And they're bringing solutions which are not, commoditized kind of a product, which means they've been able to create a certain kind of attraction. If we want these sort of people, if I want a great bespoke solution, it would need a talented, it would need a Moonshot, it would need a Spring, it would need an Enormous and Fundamental. I need these kind of people. I'm not going to go out there and win businesses because I'm undercutting the rest of them. I'm playing because commercials is a big part of it. No, our job, right? People are doing great solution. People are bringing about great amount of value to clients' businesses, is to push what is really needed for the industry up, which is the kind of compensation that the industry gets. Absolutely. Of course, they've done well with the kind of work that they're doing, but I think where I think they've done even better is push the whole idea of compensation and the respect that the other side, the clients will have for the agencies a little bit more up, right? I think some of the independents are anchoring it better than, even the networks.
Interesting
Some
point.
of the networks.
Interesting point. Any quick comments on that before we move into the last segment?
Yeah, I think they're very...
Compensation, so we can talk a lot on it.
Yeah, compensation is another episode entirely.
Yeah, no, just just adding to this point. I think they're super funny. I think Tanmay and Devaya and like the entire AIB gang, very, very funny.
I'm just going to say like a stuck record, just know what you're in it for, right?
Yeah.
They or anybody else who's doing well today has a niche. I really do think that the problem happens with one size fits all and, hum sab kuch karke denge, which is technically every big setup's clarion call. We are one stop. We are 360. We are 720. We are 828. And that's where the problem arises, right? So whether it's a Moonshot or whether it's any other outfit, if you know what you're good for and if you can do that better than others, that's when you have something going. So I do think that they have a niche, right? And they've really dug deep into that. And I think that's what differentiates any successful outfit from the other.
Any independent outfit,
Absolutely.
right, at the end of the day.
Because if you're going to leave, if you've left something behind and then you turn around and say, I want to go back to exactly that and do everything, then what have you really done?
There's a reason why most independents are named after adjectives and not acronyms. It comes from some point of clarity, on what you want to kind of do. When she launched her outfit calling it Fundamental, I'm like, great. I get it. I know what Pallavi is in this for, in a way. It's clear what his ambitions are when he names his agency in a particular way. Same with him, same with us. You can't be a bunch of acronyms and say that the whole thing is kind of coming together, which took me back to your first question. Like some merger happened, I'm like, okay, cool. There were acronyms on this side and there are acronyms on this side, and then there's going to be a bigger acronym over here. That's what Twitter was laughing about. So it's telling.
Yeah. Acronyms.
PJ, by the way, there is an agency called Yes, Yes, Why Not?
Yeah, there is.
There was. Actually, and very long ago it was.
You know what that stands for?
Long ago it was made. Yeah.
I think they still
They're
exist.
still
right?
around, yeah. They're still around, yes.
I want to ask then what's the best agency name you all have heard of, and maybe you can think about that and tell me later. Let's get
Our
into
own
it.
agency
I like
names.
yes, yes, why
Apart
not?
from your own
Yes,
agency,
yes,
that
yes,
is,
why
but
not?
It's fantastic, and we've said fundamental a few times just as part
I
of the
know.
conversation.
It comes up a lot and we chuckle regularly in client meetings. Even the clients chuckle. So
Fundamental.
it's only
Let's
when you
get back
start
You have to change the
fundamentals.
spelling to register it.
Numerology.
No. We have a trick, but I won't talk about that now.
Fantastic. Okay. One word, what made you start your agency? Describe the reason or emotion behind it.
Felt like a bunch of us together were one dream team, and we are destined to do amazing things.
Okay. Okay. Ashish, what did you write down? Fun.
Fun,
Yeah.
right? So do things which are interesting. I mean, it's not like I wasn't doing the kind of stuff that I wanted to do. I wanted to set up a place. This was also the time when the real OGs of independent agencies, Aggie and so on and so forth, Web Chutney, was happening at the same time. We thought we could create in a way that it would be a dramatically different culture from what existed. Yeah, so, yeah.
Fun. Yeah. Bring back the fun, right? I think a lot of people have always talked about that. Arun?
Disruption. My single-minded point was just disrupt. Yeah, that was my only motivation, because I felt if as leaders of the business and you're seeing the business headed in a certain direction, and if you don't disrupt, then
Someone else will?
no, then you're not showing the way. You're not showing the way. Succeed or no, I don't know. But if you don't show disruption, and I also think the other thing is, to be very honest, I think that the amount of difference that we've made to brands as individuals and having worked with large brands, the kind of wealth generation that should have been a part of our lives is not something we as a business have done well at all. We have created large brands,
Exactly.
created tons of money for clients, for these companies, but never has anybody other than who has sold their agencies to network agencies. We've not found another way to make money of our business, and that's something that I wanted to kind of see if we can disrupt and make it happen.
It's a very interesting point. And to your point, Pallavi, about having an entire conversation on compensation and making money.
Tell me when.
But tell me your answer to your
Hunger. That's
okay.
it. Simple. I think it explains itself, right? If you think you want to do something your way, then get to it. That's it.
Okay. The next question, it's very interesting you mentioned, selling, because that's my next question to everyone. What would make you sell?
I can't sell, so I'm SEBI-regulated.
Didn't come into this thinking about selling. Absolutely not. And in
Okay.
fact, a lot of people looked at me strangely when I said that. So, yes, this eye is not on valuation.
PG, Ashish, any?
I'm not averse to it at all, but it can't be just a commercial decision. There are many number of people who've had conversations with us in the past. We have to see that the core values of what we do, what they will bring to the table, there is a synergy and there is a multiplier that happens because of that. Otherwise, we're doing very, very well, even commercially and all of that. So we'd have, no reason to get out there and worry about like how the whole finances of it's going to take place and all of that. If there is a multiplier, sure, right? If there is a meeting of cultures, of course, right? Otherwise, we are happy the way we are.
Right.
Just one question, Ashish, on that, and again,
Sure,
this
go
just
on.
for me to understand. I've seen a lot of players who have sold, made the wealth, and become one more large system, right? How to protect yourself from that, I think, is a big challenge for, and keep that going.
So this is exactly why I said, so nobody can look 20 years into the future, right? I'm saying our intent to start, when me and my co-founder spoke, I think the way you build your system changes if you come into it with an eye on valuation. Simple. So which is why if you're asking me now, 1.5 years in, all of us will have the same thing, that no, we're not intending to sell, we're intending to build. There is something, and build, if you've come into it saying that there's an approach that you're bringing to the table, and that approach is basically, okay, who's going to call, ring the doorbell first, then you'll grow accordingly, and you will scale accordingly, and you will plan accordingly, you'll structure yourself, resource yourself accordingly. if you come into it to bring alive the school of advertising that you think you stand for,
Right.
then whatever happens later will happen. But you're not working towards that goal.
Right. Absolutely.
I tend to agree with the short answer, yes. Build is pretty much what almost 100% of our heads are there only. But it's also true to what Arun was saying, that we don't have enough good stories of shops that have sold and good things have happened for both parties. Everyone's just happy, like full working together. Yes, wow, aisa hi karna hai. Like that role model energy does not exist too much. What in the last 10 years, Droga said an interesting thing on a podcast about his selling to Accenture. He was like, should I try an Aussie accent?
Go ahead.
Like, he was like, oh, Accenture's given us a ton of money and we've bought them. That's kind of how, that was the attitude with which he went into his floor and whatever, right? So there's that, which is not your traditional buyer, right? It was a completely different industry kind of coming in, and we've seen how that's also kind of panned out. It's panned out quite interestingly, at least. Uncommon with Havas, quite recently. Also, the motivation for that was a branching out, you know, they wanted to get into a different market, America, etc., all of that. I think if there are more good stories that kind of come out of this, and not, you know, if it's not just some discourse about some Faustian bargain, then cool. Then we can afford an expanded vocabulary around it.
What's the one thing that's terribly wrong with the advertising industry today?
Talent experience.
Okay. Ashish, what are you writing?
Compensation.
Remuneration.
I think that's the biggest thing.
Same.
Yeah.
I agree.
Money.
I think I have a complicated answer. I think actually lack of brand building. I think lack of brand building.
Okay. Yeah. Going back to your earlier
Can
point.
I screw up your rapid fire format and expand on that for 10 seconds?
You 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Yeah. I think at the even more fundamental to it is it's how we're priced. I think the industry is just different types of shops are priced very differently. There are still some large shops doing time-based pricing. I don't think too many indies are in that overall. And I think the way I think the root of all of our problems actually comes down to 2 to 3 decades of this time-based pricing model that we've kind of had. My co-founder and I did a session at Cannes last year just about this point overall, but like Pallavi said from earlier, topic for another day.
Yeah, I mean, that's it absolutely is a longer conversation. Okay, fun question. An ad from your childhood. Just what do you remember? Like first ad that comes to mind.
Jalebi.
Jalebi.
Washing powder Nirma.
Of course, that's just like it's still a earworm.
The Sunday movie.
Childhood really, like, but you know, much later, Kelvinator, the coolest one. It's something that I like often find myself.
The teeth chattering one.
The teeth chattering one. It's something that I always keep on going
ऐसा
back
तो
to
बहुत
when
है. But I was staying true to childhood.
And I would have to go to Harrison Ka Tala or something.
अब नए पैक में. That's the part I remember like clearly. अब नए
Because washing powder Nirma, I remember, because in those days everybody was watching the movies in the housing society that I lived in, and it used to echo in the society. Like it was every home it was playing, right? And there was this echo effect of.
Those were simpler
and later
days.
when Prasoon and all did that the relaunch of it, oh man, it was severe memories.
Yeah, yeah.
I grew up in Chennai, guys. I have a bunch of fantastic Tamil ads, but I don't think you all will know it.
I will know.
Just name it.
I think the ones for Hammam and Amritanjan, there was an MTR
Yeah,
Gulab
Hammam I
Jamun
remember
ad.
very well. Yeah.
Fantastic MTR Gulab Jamun ad.
Amritanjan was in fact, if I remember, it did a little hat tip to every language.
Yeah, no, so
it was like point there.
It was
That
there.
whole number did.
But like today, it's about all
Headache is
languages,
language
right?
agnostic. No?
Headache is language agnostic. That is true.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a good one. Okay, a recent ad that stuck with you, and it cannot be your own agency's ad. Anything that you've seen recently that you said, wow,
Lahori Zira.
that's great.
Oh, Lahori.
Damn
Fantastic.
Damn good.
For me, it would have to be a bunch of Swiggy ads, the
Chawal.
Chawla, some of those, they're like really, really good. The ad that you just did, like day before yesterday, for Britannia, the outdoor campaign, that's also quite interesting.
Okay, okay. Mutual admiration.
Oh yeah, we paid each
Did
other
you,
before
did you
yesterday.
mention anything?
Lahore is I thought it was very
so,
fun. Great.
majority here, Ashish.
I also love Lahore Easy.
All right. Few quick ones on media. Okay. Long video or short video? Just state your preference.
Sorry?
Long video or short video? Just state your preference. What do you, as a consumer, as a consumer, like what do you prefer watching? We talk about, you know, sort of the long ad format versus now everybody just wants it short, and it's getting shorter.
I have a point of view on that. I think everybody talks about lack of attention span and all. I think it's about good content or bad content.
Okay.
And we don't know how to
So it's
talk about that.
So
That's the problem.
It can be 5 seconds and nobody is interested. And it can be 30 minutes and nobody's interested. Or it can be 30 minutes and you're riveted. So I think it's a question of how can you, because there is a lot that's being watched.
Yeah.
How do you create something that people want to watch? I think that's the challenge. I don't think it's the second edge.
It's true because we don't know how to talk about good work. It's kind of like a breeze, but we know how to talk about. We can do long, short. Should the logo be there? Should the logo in this medium, that medium? It makes for great gyan. It's harder to have a very expanded vocabulary as an industry around good work overall. In fact, I think the advertising industry is, for instance, we're very reductive about like general, let's say, idea inspirations, or this is original, this is copy, and this and that. If you look at higher art forms, that vocabulary barely exists. Like they're all like, yeah, okay, I'll take from here, I'll take it, because they know how to actually talk about the core of it so much better. And I think that's kind of the reason why we should be having a better vocabulary on just creativity in general, and that difference between good and bad in general, or at least good and mediocre in general. We don't, unfortunately.
And I also think that budgets, duration, these are all great excuses to justify mediocre work. I have done it. Personally, I have done it myself. I'm not kidding. So it's just excuses. So I think, and I think that's where I think a lot of the indie shops, you know, and I get inspired by seeing some of their work, because a lot of the challenges are turned into great opportunities. So
Yes, yes.
And I don't think a consumer will ever react to long or short video. They'll say, "Wo wala acha laga." And that's how anybody should be.
that kind of hurts a little bit is that I don't see enough people who are not connected with the business talking about ads.
Okay.
That's the God honest truth. I think a lot of us talk about it. A lot of the people in the business talk about it. But very rarely do you see people talking about ads now, unlike before.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
truth.
I think
Your
there's-
parents, your grandparents, did you see
Not
that
just
ad? Or
older
your
people,
friends,
not
or
just older
anybody,
people.
just
Even in
like,
friend
you know,
circles, I actually
sharing
watch-
something in WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Zuzus were probably the last campaign
where
which got people's imagination.
Where people in living rooms were discussing
You
it.
saw
Or unless the media spends are such that you can't ignore it. You know, like what happens with a Dream 11 campaign or a cred on the IPL, some of the IPL campaigns, but then you have to have like 50, 75,
pockets.
100 crore. Of course, the work is also good. I'm not taking away anything from the work. It's good work, but with a lot of money. You know, and that's
But
what.
that could also be happening because, like you were saying, in your whole mohalla, everybody was watching the same thing. Now we're not. And the reality
Yeah,
is that
that's the truth.
that is the reality. You're just on 25 different platforms and 25 different things are being thrown at you
Right.
on a minute-by-minute basis. So the shelf life of everything is that. So it just depends on, in that moment, what you're looking at. Is it riveting you? Is it, and if it's being done for the purpose of commercial art,
Right.
then is it achieving its purpose? Is it doing something to further the aim with which you made it? Otherwise, we can't. I mean, he's absolutely right. You can't. Nobody's talking about it. It's not pop culture anymore, right? Or if it is, it's in tiny pockets.
Right. If there's one piece of advice you would, we spoke about how everybody wants to be a creator today, right? If you had to speak to a young person today and tell them this is why you should join advertising, your agency or any other agency instead, and be a creator there versus an independent creator, what would you tell them? What would your pitch be to them?
Well, you know, take risks, man. Be bold. It's is the only thing that will get you to a place which is what you come here for. You come here to be, not just sell a little bit more soap. Of course, all of that also, but you come here for a very simple thing, that you have a voice, you want it heard, right? Bring that voice, bring the taste that you born with or you developed and all of that, bring it to the table and see if you can even fail spectacularly, right? It's तुम्हारे बाप का पैसा नहीं है, right? So, yeah.
Unfortunately, मैं वो नहीं बोल सकता.
Well, what would you tell them? What would you tell them? I don't, especially a shop like yours, very different perhaps from,
I think
conventional.
my pitch would be that you can actually end up creating brands that will influence the culture of this country for another couple of decades. And that's what you can play an early part in. Because I feel that there are going to be younger, newer brands that are going to come into our lives.
Right.
And as you see, we are all consuming stuff like the number of mokobaras that you see at an airport today. Right? So I'm just saying that there are newer brands that are going to come into the fold, and here is your opportunity to participate in creating them from scratch.
Nice point.
You'll get to love your job. It doesn't sound like a reality in today's world, especially with the kind of crap that's going around. Every other day there's toxicity being discussed.
More
and
power to you.
bandied about. You will love your job. Everybody we have on board right now enjoys what they do, day in and day out.
Oh, wow, that's rare. That's rare right now. We're talking about 90-hour work weeks now, so,
Don't stare at your wife.
I kind of feel like there's I don't have a script for this answer in my head, because I've generally seen myself, if there's, I think the general problem in our industry is I think we employ too many people who are not, so we see ourselves as this large employer of above average people. Advertising in general, oh, what is growth? 5,000 people in my agency, 6,000. So I think this, I don't know if more people coming into advertising is what we need, or we just need the really good people feeling like they don't have so many things standing in their way. So I'm perfectly comfortable with a vision for this industry which employs fewer, better people doing more of the work. 90% of advertising is ignored. It's for a reason, because 90% of the, I mean, maybe not 90%, but there are lots and lots of people here who are in it for the ride, and who probably are not here with the best motivations for the industry overall, right? So, so yeah, if there's someone who probably comes in with a thing to say, hey, I want to join advertising, and this is what I generally like about it, etc. My conversation is usually asking them a little bit of slightly more provocative questions around whether they have it in them in terms of what they're overall kind of signing up for, etc. And if they have it in them, then yeah, then it's on you as an employer, right, to give them their best shot.
And give them the canvas to work with, of course. Absolutely. That's all the time we have today, unfortunately. This could go on for a lot longer. We were just warming up, but thank you so much. Really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, Delshad.